Hey there, Christian parents and book lovers. Before we get into today's episode, I need your help. The goal of Bookworthy is to serve you, the listener, readers, parents, grandparents, and even the kids. So I need your input. Help Bookworthy make plans and know how to serve you best by filling out the 2026 listener survey in the show notes. I can't wait to hear what you have to say and what we can do together. Now back to the main event. Welcome to Bookworthy, where we talk about the heart behind the books your kids are reading. Today, we're talking with children's author Allia Zobel Nolan about her latest picture book, Finding Harmony, the kitten who taught friends kindness. Allia was last on Bookworthy talking about Harriet, Hurry Up, and the Oh So Slow Day back in season 3. But today, we've turned our attention to the search for a kitten and the highs and lows of friendship. Welcome back to Bookworthy, Allia.
Well, I'm very excited to be here, and I love talking with you about children's books, which it's my favorite thing to talk about, besides my cats.
Well, we are kind of combining both of those loves today with this book, Finding Harmony. But before we can talk about that, we have to do our random question of the week. And today's is, what is your go-to coffee order?
Whoa, what is my go-to coffee love? I am a coffee lover. I like tea, but it doesn't get me going. I have 3 cups of coffee every morning, but they're medium roast. They're not like high roast. And I do absolutely love a latte, but I don't have a latte machine. So I just have regular coffee, and I do my meditate for an hour in the morning. I meditate and I pray and I drink coffee and I pet the cats. And that's how my day starts. So yes, I love coffee.
That sounds like a great way to start the day. I found a way to, do a little concoction in my house where I'm using my coffee machine, but making iced coffee with caramel. And I'm like, seems like a scientific process, but it's fun when I get to make it work.
Well, I tried something different and it turned out to be quite delicious. I buy this hint water because I drink a lot of water and it's supposed to have a hint of a flavor. And instead of taking tap water, I've been putting the hint water and then I get the flavor of I use flavored coffee like vanilla or hazelnut. And now it's got a hint of whatever the hint is, like peach or raspberry. So that was an experiment that worked out pretty well.
Sounds very interesting. Well, Leah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book, Finding Harmony in the Search for Friendship?
Well, my book, Finding Harmony, had a circuitous route to its beginning. The editor at Zondervan asked me to come up with a book about peace. And, that's a humongous concept. How do you teach children about peace? So I thought, well, you have to break it down. You have to boil it down to like 1 or 2 different kinds of, focuses. And so I said to myself, well, what is peace? And, it's really getting along. It's getting along with your neighbor and it's trying to be nice and live in harmony. Okay. There's the word, harmony. So then I thought to myself, well, you can't really name a character peace, here peace. That just sounds very weird. So I went online and I looked for synonyms. And of course I came up with harmony and I said, I could see a kitten with the name Harmony. That's very sweet. Let me use that. So then I had to go back and think about how I can integrate, of course, a cat, a cat has to be in this. And I thought, well, maybe the characters are trying to find the lost cat. So that's how that came about. It isn't really a book, it doesn't say this is how peace works, but through the example of the kitten and the children working together, it's sort of like I'm trying not to show them me, because in this world today, everything is me, take a picture of me and selfie and all this other stuff. So I'm trying to say to them and let them understand that it's we instead of me, and that things really seem to work out much better when we involve other people. We also involve their feelings and we have to put ourselves in their place. And that is a way to achieve harmony. And in the book, when they did all these things, they were able to find the cat and also achieve harmony within themselves. Because at the beginning, they they were shouting at each other. They stopped for ice cream, so they were distracted. Meanwhile, the cat is going meow meow, but no one heard her because of all these things. They weren't concentrated. They were mean to each other. And the second thing that I wanted to involve the children with is prayer. The main character, Casey, she jumps up in the middle of, trying to find the cat and says, "We didn't say a prayer." So the other character says, "Boy, God has better things to do than to worry about a cat. He's not going to be interested in that. He's not going to." So another character corrects her and says, "My mom told me that you can pray to God for anything. Now, if you pray to God to win the lottery, maybe he won't help you out there, but you have to pray with the intention that it's something God would want you to have or do." So they went back and they held hands and they said a prayer. And it was just trying to combine these two things. Not really two things, but it's learn to work together, involve everyone, ask God's help, pay attention, and try not to be a bully to run the whole show. So that's my peace book.
Your peace book has a lot of pieces
Yes.
to it.
Yes, it does.
But
It does.
those pieces do help communicate such a broad concept of peace, and not just peace itself and working together with others, but how we treat each other and how we're
Right.
aware of our surroundings. And Harmony the kitten has a really fun part playing kind of peekaboo throughout the story to help encourage readers to keep reading. What made
Right.
you want Harmony to kind of pop up on every page?
Well, the thing is, to get kids' attention, it's an interactive book in that it doesn't have flaps to open or whatever, but it involves the child because at the very bottom, there's a question. Do you see Harmony on this page? Is Harmony behind the rock? So you're not only reading, you're involving the child in with the characters. The characters are looking for harmony and the reader is looking for harmony. So I wanted to add just that extra little bit to better involve the children, because if they have a task, if you tell them, "Can you find it on this page?" or they'll be more attuned to it and attentive, I feel, anyway.
It's very true. If we can, a really good children's book engages kids on so many different levels. And that's why
Right.
they keep coming back to them. And so they can keep returning to a message that can be complicated and have so many layers, but keep coming back and continue to learn and dive a little deeper into the idea of both friendship and peace and just caring for the world that we're in. So that's a lot of fun.
Right. I did have a part in the book where the boys, because I think boys at this age think they know it all and they think they know better than the girls. So I have a spread in there where they are going to the woods to get some big sticks in case they have to fight some dragons, which it's all in their minds and whatever. But then also when they see what their words and how their actions hurt the main character, they apologized. And I wanted to have that. It's not, a bad thing, or it doesn't lessen you to apologize to someone when you know that you've hurt them. So I wanted that piece to go in. And the best part about this book was working with I had the most fabulous illustrator, and he is in Argentina. Uh,
Wow.
so we emailed back and forth, and I wrote out an art brief, which is what's on every single page, and he got it. Sometimes the illustrators don't get it, or they have a difficult time meshing with what you want. And he was so fabulous. Very few changes. Very few changes. And the characters, I don't know if you've noticed, they're very up to date. One of them has the shaved hair that the kids have these days and the spiked hair and everything. So when I looked at the characters, I said, boy, these are very contemporary. Kids will, it's not like Raggedy Ann or Raggedy Andy, it's like they can see themselves in the characters. I had a very, very pleasant relationship, working relationship with this illustrator. So that
And
was fun.
it shows in the book because with a picture book, illustrations are kind of half of the story. And I love how both the illustrations and the way that you develop the individual characters, the boys and the girls and Casey and all their interactions are very relatable on how kids interact today.
Right.
So it's, it doesn't feel like a story that is like, oh, this is a story my mom grew up with. I don't want to read this, even though
Right.
it's probably telling you similar things, but it is very relatable and very understandable. And for, the kids that are facing the same struggles that we are today.
Right. Right. Well, that's what I tried to do. People say, well, how can you write for kids? They ask me, how can you? I pretend like I am the kid and what a kid would think or whatever. And that's the way, for the time that I'm doing the book, I put myself in their place or try to put myself, what would they think? Not what was an adult would think. And then I
Or
have to
what
get
you
out
want
of
to.
that, cook dinner for my husband.
I know it's hard to shift your brain
My
in
goodness.
that way to be mindful of that child inside of you. But then remember, yes, dinner still needs to get on the table every once in a while.
Yes. Yes.
Too fun. Well, what do you hope kind of kids walk away with? What do you want the overall message for kids to understand at the end of this book?
Well, the two things that I mentioned before, the one thing is that teamwork is very important. I mean, it's important that you have something that you do well yourself, but I find that, brainstorming and getting other people's ideas. And I have a good friend that when I'm stuck, I always go to her when we go to Panera and we just sit there and throw out ideas. And, a lot of times you think you know it all and you think you have it all, but the other person adds to it, always adds to it. So that's one of the things I wanted the children to take away is that things go smoother when you involve other people, your peers or whatever. If you have a project, a very big project, it's really hard to go it alone because not only do you have a problem trying to figure things out, but it's so much more helpful to have other people's take on something that you might not. And the second thing, again, is that we can we can pray for anything. We can ask God to help us in any circumstance. Now, and God is interested in everything we're interested in. The scripture says not a bird falls from the sparrow falls from the ground without God knowing it. And, you may feel with all the things that are going on in this world, you may feel, well, I have to ask God to help me if I'm going to the dentist and I'm afraid, or I have to ask God, I'm going to get a COVID vaccine pretty soon. I want God to help me there. Kids have to understand that there is nothing that God can't help you with. And that was why I included them saying the prayer. And you may forget about it. Kids may, adults and children, you go to God as the last resort instead of going to God as the first resort. So this is kind of like, she jumps up and she says, oh my goodness, we forgot, we forgot to ask God. So I think it's a good idea. Before we started this, we said a prayer. It's not, God doesn't just pick and choose what he wants to concentrate on. He concentrates on everything that we're interested in.
That's one of those really hard concepts to understand about God that, he is with us in everything. And if we care about it, he cares about it because we care about it.
Right.
So it's
No, it is.
a little bit of a tongue twister, but I mean,
Right. Well,
it's
it's difficult for little children to, that's why I had the girl speaking up and saying, God is not interested in our cat. He's got better things to do, and as a kid and even as an adult, you would think that, but like I said before, you shouldn't be going to God for, at the last minute. You should be going to him at the beginning.
It's true. We do tend to use prayer as a last resort rather than our first line of defense.
Right.
And it's even with my kids, when they lose things, we'll spend hours looking for something. It's like, we forgot to pray about this. And,
Right.
lo and behold, we'll pray, we'll sit, take a breath, and really quickly we will find whatever we're looking for, or it'll show up in the most unique place.
In the most unique places, because that's the thing. Like, I think kids and I think adults are part of the problem. Kids want things right away, just like Harriet, hurry up. Let me find the cat right away. I think you have to let them practice this. It doesn't come normally because normally we want things right away. But if you practice, immediate gratification, that the kids will grow up knowing, like you just said, something really important. We'll find it. It may not be today or tomorrow or whatever, but in God's time, you'll find it. So,
Very true. What was it? My son has a lizard, and this is kind of one of the best examples of it in our household is when the lizard was first in our home, he was like maybe the size of my finger. I mean, this
uh-huh,
little bitty thing. And I went away for the evening, and dad was in charge of making sure the lizard got fed. And then I came home, and the cage door was open, and we couldn't find the lizard anywhere. I mean, we tore my son's room apart. We looked everywhere. And then it just kind of came to a point where we're like, I don't know. We just need to wait and see what happens. And lo and behold, the lizard was in the cage the whole time in this little vent area. And he popped out at night because it's a nocturnal creature.
right,
And
right,
it really was like we sit there and we went through all this craziness, and they were like, okay, we're just going to pray and trust that God sees this little lizard, that God knows where he is, and he's going to help us find it. And a couple hours later, after we had just kind of let God do
yeah,
his thing, this
right.
lizard just popped right where it was supposed to be.
Right. And I think part of it is you get so unnerved and excited and crazy, and I'm ADD, so I get like bananas when something happens, but I am learning, thank God, to things happen better when you're calm. You're able to do a lot of things, and the result is better when you're calm, not when you're crazy.
Yes, it is easy to get worked up and something that either is lost or, something is happening and it to be just it bring up this anxiety. And I think that that's often our first response is nervousness and anxiety instead of, like I said, the prayer of just, Lord, we know you got this. We don't know how this is going to end, but we're going to trust that you're in control here. Well, Leo, what is your, I guess, the most impactful book in your life other than the Bible?
Okay, well, I made a list. I have it here somewhere. The most impactful book is a book of devotions, and it's called The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. This book is one of the books I read, like about one chapter in about 10 books in the morning. And they're devotionals and different kinds of books. And this book is just so wonderful, it engaging, it makes you feel good about yourself, and it makes you feel good about creation. She uses the term your higher power because it's for all religions. It's not just for the Christian religion. And it means you have to let go of so many things, just like we were talking, before you get what God has in store for you. Like there's this artwork that I have, and there's a little kid, and she's got a stuffed animal, and Jesus is standing next to her, and she's saying, "Oh, but I love it." Meanwhile, he has this ginormous stuffed animal that he wants to give to her, something better. So this book, as I said, it's a series of devotions, and it gives you, it pumps up your self-esteem and also your relationship with other people. So I like to read that. There's another one that's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. That's the name of that. And I like to read that. But I also love Anne Lamott. Anything by Anne Lamott is on my, I have two or three that I haven't finished. She wrote a book called Bird by Bird, and it's for writers really, but it's for everyone. I had never read it before, and someone suggested it to me. I read it, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, and I was like, I can't believe how fantastically she writes. I mean, just unbelievable. So I like that. I like historical fiction books, Sharon K. Penman. I like those kinds of books, but I like devotionals because they sort of help me get centered. I like to read them in the morning, and they sort of help me get centered for the day.
Very excited. Now, Leah, you have written a lot of books over time. Now, what has been your favorite part of your writing career? Like, what has made it most meaningful to you?
Well, when people send me photographs of of their kids reading the book, that makes my day. I mean, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not, James Patterson or whatever. But when somebody sends me a picture of their kid reading the book, that's worth $1,000,000 to me. I mean, it's just might sound corny, but I just love the idea that because reading to me is so important. It's so important. I mean, I don't think I could be who I am today if I didn't, start out. I mean, I used to always have my head in the book. And even now I've got like, 50 on my Kindle and 150 on my dresser. So it's just such a great way to go into another person's head, another world, it's wonderful. And when you read these statistics about kids, not reading, that makes me crazy. So that's the most important thing for me. And I love to make people laugh. So I love to write humor. And I have to add right now, I have to insert, I have just won an award from the William Faulkner Literary Competition. I wrote it's a short story about my sister's kids who didn't mean to, so the animal activists won't come after me. Didn't mean to, but left the ferret outside and it fried. So the it's all about the fried ferret and how they tried to get their new Spanish housekeeper to serve it for dinner. So it's all, I mean, she didn't, and they didn't, and you'd have to read the story. But I was so surprised to get that. And, that was a very, that was nice, I have to say.
It sounds like a very fun story and worthy of reading for certain.
This is when I was reading it, when I was writing it, I said, people who I love animals. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily fry a ferret, but if it's fried already, what can you do about it? So anyway, I had to write the story about Psycho. They named the ferret Psycho, the fried ferret. So I was very
My
happy to see that
goodness.
people down in Mississippi seem to relate to this.
Well, in the South, we do like everything fried. So,
My husband said to me, "No wonder you won. It's Mississippi. They like fried stuff." Anyway, he
goodness,
doesn't
too
take me
fun.
seriously. So I'm very happy about that. But
Very
I love
exciting.
the idea of getting kids reading. So it's just, I had a child reading my Angels in the Bible upside down. So her mother sent me a video of there is this beautiful child, like an angel herself, and she's sitting and she's reading and she's going, and the book is upside down, and she's saying, and the angel did this and that, and the angel said to Mary, "Hi, Mary," and she's making it up as she's going along. And see, this is another thing. I'm doing a session on why picture books are so important, because not only for language and for getting kids introduced to the other people who are not like them, but it also stirs their imagination. I mean, here is this kid telling the whole story about the angels in an upside down book. I mean, it doesn't get better than that for me anyway.
That's
So.
amazing. Well, Leah, what can we expect next from you?
Well, I'm taking a little rest because no, I never rest. I wrote a book before this called, I don't know if you can see it, but it's called Why Can't My Brother Be More Like My Cat? And this is a fun, very fun, kind of a in between a picture book and a reader. And this book, I guess after I wrote it, I said, this corresponds with, there's a scripture that says, a friend loves at all time, but a brother is born for adversity. And I said, that's what this book is about. So, I mean, it's not religious per se, but it just teaches kids that, friends can be fickle, but your family is usually always there for you, so. And I'm writing a book called Hello, God, Remember Me. And it's a devotional it's a prayer book for people who want God back in their lives. So that's going from children to adult, but I write what comes to me, and I think we need that. That's a book. People are afraid to go back to God because they think, oh, he's gonna get me for all the things I've done, and many, many people have done terrible things or sinful things when they were younger. And I think a lot of people think that, God is merciful. And if you say you're sorry, you have a shot at him for, of course, God will forgive you, but people are nervous about that, I think. And I
Yeah,
think they're also nervous because they think, well, maybe if I'm not going to stop what I'm doing that's wrong. So these are all kinds of things I'm going to put in this book. So
that sounds very exciting
that's
and
the new
a
one.
very sweet reminder of who God is. And, just no matter what we do, God can walk us through, the hard, the sin, the choices we've made. He makes all things good for those who are called according to his name. So
Right.
he can make it all right.
Right, but and that's a scary thing for a lot of people.
It can.
It's a scary thing because they say, "Well, I'm sorry now." Just like what was in the Bible, there was Jesus told the rich kid to get rid of all his stuff, and he wanted to, but then he said, "This stuff is too good. I'm not," So that's why a lot of people don't want to come back because they don't want to change their behavior, or they don't think they can change their behavior. But anyway, this
Very
book
true.
will 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 hopefully help.
I look forward to hearing more about that. Where can people find out more about you and your books, Aaliyah?
Very simple. www. Allia Writes, and that's ALLIA Writes, WRITES, and all the books are there. My author page.
We'll make sure to have those links in the show notes so people can find you and all your books easily.
Oh, that's good. And I will send you my why can't my brother be more like my cat? I think your children will get a kick out of it.
Oh, they will love that. They may not ever get a cat in our house, but I'm
Well, if
allergic,
you got
but they will enjoy that for certain.
it scared the heck out of me at the beginning, but I thought it was a real cat. So maybe you need that in your family, right?
Well, thank you for joining me today, Aaliyah.
Yes, thank you for having me. I always have fun when I talk to you.
It is always a pleasure. And thank you for joining Aaliyah and me on this episode of the Bookworthy podcast. Check the show notes for any books or links we discussed, and let us know in the comments what's your go-to coffee order. And be sure to join the Bookworthy's Family Summer Reading Challenge to discover more great books together. Happy reading!